All right, everybody, welcome to another video on the channel. Something a little bit different. It's me and J Ross here to preview. We felt game three needed a preview. We haven't done a preview in a while, so we thought going into game three, I mean, it's basically now single elimination for however far the Sounders go in the playoffs because it's win or go home now for the remainder of the matches. So it's game three against Minnesota, and we're here to talk about it. Boys and girls, before we jump into the video, please smash the like button on it. Let's get over 20 likes. Good luck going into the third match. As well, if you're new to the channel, we're on the road to 2,000 subscribers. We're very, very close. And with your guys' help, we can reach that before the playoffs end. And as well, final piece, we will be live post-match for this game. So at about 3:30, if the game ends in regular time, we should be live. I left a link in the description and in the annotation, so just click notify me so you guys know when we are live. But J Ross, going into game three, before we talk about that, let's reflect on game one and two because we have sample sizes. One win for Minnesota, one win for the Sounders. What was kind of like your thoughts from game one, game two? And we'll touch a little bit more upon game two because it was the more recent game. But let's vomit your thoughts from those two matches.
Yeah, well, I was on. Already talked about game one quite a bit, but which was obviously disappointing. But my vibes are going up now going into game three because of how good game two went. I think Brian deserves a ton of credit. We saw the Sounders come out in a bit of a different formation going into that one. Morris playing more on the wing. And I think that worked to the Sounders' benefit a ton. I think it created way more opportunities. And I think it allowed all of our attackers to get on balls in areas that we want them to get on the ball. Morris was able to actually dribble at defenders. Moose was just Moose, found it where he wanted to be. And Ferreira was a little more hidden, but he was able to get those crucial touches, obviously coming away with a goal-ish. Morris stole it. But anyway, I think that ended up working out good for the team. And I honestly think that the 4-2, I'm more happy with it than just a 4-2 because outside of that 5-minute blip in the end of end of the first half, the Sounders looked really good. And those mistakes that gave up our 2 goals don't really worry me as much because it wasn't really Minnesota beating us. It was 2 big brain farts right at the end of halftime. And I was honestly impressed by the fact that the Sounders were able to hold on to it and go on to win the game because that would have been a very Sounders-esque loss if we would have choked that 3-0 lead. And so I'm almost weirdly more confident going into this game due to the fact that we were able to hold on after giving up 2 ugly goals more than I would have been if we would have just straight up won 3-0, if that makes sense.
No, I get what you mean. As well, to add on to your like the positivities and feeling better going into the third game is this is the Sounders' first win against Minnesota all season. So obviously you're gonna feel a lot better because going into this second game in the playoffs against Minnesota, we were a little bit more down in the dumps because that was 3 straight losses to them this season, which is kind of unheard of. It's kind of unprecedented. So it was good to see the Sounders win that match. I didn't get a chance to talk about game one. I know you and Brody were able to, and I'll just quickly like kind of brisk over that. I think we just fell into Minnesota's trap, and Sounders kind of did what Sounders do best, where in
100%.
that game they weren't able to score. And you talked about it in your clip that a lot of people really engaged with a lot was the best thing to do against the Sounders is bunker down, let us have possession. And many teams have done that to varying success. Like we've seen LAFC in that year where they beat us 4 out of 5 matches. They did that quite a bit, but they obviously had that, high end talent that added not just 1 goal or sending it to penalties, but 2 or 3 goals, and they really punish you. And I think Minnesota did that. They did what to their strengths. They did what they did earlier in the season. That the reason why they got 2 wins against us, and they were able to execute in the first game. Second game, like you said, very surprising. Maybe not. I don't want to say very, but surprising. Brian switched up the lineup and played
Yeah.
2 strikers. He played Musovski, he played Morris. Massive credit for him for doing that, playing with more firepower. It was a blow for blow type game. I guess my only concern is Sounders did what Sounders have done since post Leagues Cup, which is not being confident with their leads. Because I agree with you to a degree that it was less so Minnesota being good, more so Sounders being bad. But we've seen it. And honestly, though, it was an absurd situation, the fact that they were up 3-0 and they almost blew, because it wasn't like they scored 2 and that was it. They almost scored 3. Like, they were really putting it on the Sounders. And going into the second half, I thought, okay, if Sounders don't switch it up, I could see Minnesota sending this to PK. So that was my worry, but we were able to clean up shop. That those 8 minutes of added time, though, is what worried me the most. But I will say I am a lot more confident than compared to going into game 2, going into game 3.
Yeah, and I would say, like, those goals, obviously, we'd love to see them go in, but the fact that Brian was able to rally the troops at halftime, this veteran group was able to act like a veteran group that we've been talking about all year and dig themselves out of it. Found another goal. We were able to hold on. I think that's a really good sign for this team. Like, you have to win ugly sometimes, and the Sounders somehow combine a beautiful win into an ugly win to get a huge win. And one thing that I think is really important to talk about is the Sounders are able to put so many numbers forward, get so many true attackers on the field because we trust our back line, and Roldan and Vargas are our rocks in the midfield. And we're kind of able to give up being overloaded in that area of the field because Vargas and Roldan are that good. And if you look at the defensive stats, especially between 1 and 2, in that game 2, Obed was 6 for 6 in ground duels, 1 for 1 aerial duels. We were dominating the midfield. And I think that was a bit of the difference between games 1 and 2 as to why it kind of felt like when the Sounders were dominating, we were really stepping on their throats because we were not letting Minnesota have any room to breathe. And in that game 1, we never really had that we were dominating feeling to it. You know what I mean? Maybe a little bit towards the end of the game, but it was more of I was sitting in the game watching, oh, how are we? This is not going to go good. How are we going to mess this up? What's going to happen? Wow. Outside those 8 minutes for game 2, I was like, wow, the Sounders actually look like they have some fire under them tonight, which I think was huge. I also want to
Yeah.
say, I don't think we played with 2 real strikers. If you look at Morris's, like, where he occupied on the field, on the lineup sheet, it was listed as that 4-1-2-1-2 narrow FIFA formation, but Morris definitely hung out wide a lot more, and it kind of gave him more space and let Musovski be Moose because he was able to occupy the center backs. And whenever that happened, it just gave room for Morris and Ferreira to kind of ball out. And then when they finally decided to respect other players in the field, we saw Moose sneak in behind and get that third goal, which I don't see why the Sounders won't do that in game 3.
I think definitely someone we have to touch upon for sure when game 2 was Obed Vargas, obviously. I think he was the biggest, he's not the 100%, he was the biggest reason the Sounders won that match. He went off. He could have had a hat trick in that game, which is so
Oh,
impressive.
yeah.
And it could, take it with a grain of salt, could be his last ever home match for the Sounders. And what a way that he did that. So I was really impressed with Obed, and it's just crazy how good he is. It's so crazy to me. And I think the reason why we were able to win that game, yes, change of formation helped and things like that, but the talent showed. The X factor showed. And that is our midfield. We've talked about it. You just touched upon Obed Vargas, Roldan, Obed. They were the reasons we won that game. Our X factor, our big game players. Maybe, yeah, big game players. I'd still say that. But the guys that are the best in the league, like they are the DP level players, in my opinion, on this team. And they are the ones that played that crucial role in that game. And I want to swing this question to you now is, what do the Sounders do going into this third game? Because we kind of saw two different versions of the team, both for Minnesota and both for us. We saw Sounders that couldn't break a team down. The strikers were not strikering. We saw Minnesota, we played into their trap. Then in game 2, we saw a flurry of goals, but as well conceded. It's kind of a weird mixed bag. Like right now we're in
So
the circus, we're juggling the bean bags, and what do you want to see now into game 3?
I think the Sounders don't change a thing because whatever formula Brian cooked up clearly worked, and everything tactically was sound for that game. Like I said, our 2 goals were not anything wrong with how the team was set up. It was purely on us having brain farts. For Minnesota, though, I will say I think the script gets a little bit flipped because Obed's goal happened 8 minutes into the game off of a secondary chance off of a corner kick on a shot that St. Clair probably wants back. And who's to say if he makes that save if Minnesota doesn't stick with their style of play? And we saw them open up in that second half. They shifted from that 5 to pushing their wingbacks up, going to more of a 3-back. We saw Gressel come in. They went from being a true 5-back to a 3-back, numbers pushing forward. And I'd like to think that's probably what Minnesota won't fully do, but I wouldn't be surprised if they come out of their shell a little bit to start game 3. I think that the Sounders really rattled them with the fact of how much we dominated them in game 2, and I think there will be a little bit of anxiety coming back at home. You saw in any of our tweets, like, Minnesota fans do not love watching them play like this, and I wonder if they'll feel a little bit of that pressure to maybe not go full park the bus, maybe just, like, have the e-brake half pulled up, and like I said, if I'm the Sounders, I'm not changing a thing after last game.
Okay. But then the thing is, I'll toss this up to you, but we are playing away. Like, I feel like because we were playing at home, it added that extra energy and helped us out in that regard. You don't think that
I
changes?
I think for a lot of teams, yes. Minnesota, I don't think so, because Minnesota in an ideal world would play their bunkered in. They play at home the way most teams should play on the road. And so I think
Mm.
in this matchup, the Sounders should just be the veteran team, be the been there, done that team, and I don't think we're going to change a thing.
Okay. Yeah. I uh I don't know. I mean, for me, I don't think it's as straightforward as Sounders should do exactly what they did. I know a big thing you guys talked about in from game 1 to game 2 was Dero needed to start. Do you think there should be any players that should start in this game that didn't play from the last two? Or you do think that the lineup should be
I
literally the exact same?
if I'm the Sounders, I'm sticking with the exact same. And my biggest
Wow.
complaint after game 1 was we didn't utilize the middle of the field. We just settled for keeping the ball wide, swinging around the back, and aimless crosses in. And that game 2 felt more like we were actually playing in the middle of the field. We saw Moose a bit more of a post up role and let our wingers get beyond. And there's no reason to say we can't do it again. And I think that after a win like that, you have to reward the team and you have to keep the vibes high. And we always talk about, the fear to mix up the lineup. There's definitely some of that. And I think that'll definitely roll over into seeing the same lineup picked for game 3.
For me, I will say this, I would like to see Georgie play because I still think
100%.
we yeah, I
Not
actually would
start, but
like
play.
him. I actually would start I would give him big minutes. The thing is the reason why I say that is because I really feel like the Sounders fed off of the home field advantage. I think the fans, I was very surprised, very up for it. A lot of fans were there for a Monday night match, which,
Loud.
hey, mad props to us. Yeah, I didn't think that was, I obviously knew the fans were going to show up, but you know how up and down the attendance has been. But I really feel like we fed off of that. And that's why we were able to play and score multiple goals. That part reminded me of vintage Sounders. I don't think the game as a whole did, but the amount of goals we scored, we showed up in the playoff game. That reminded me of vintage Sounders. But I do feel like we won't be exactly like that going into the third game. I think playing in Minnesota is going to add some difficulty because I do think we don't play the same at home as we do away. Yeah, cheers, like that very obvious, but like I do feel like we need a guy that can break down Minnesota in case, you know, shit hits the fan, we're not able to break them down. We don't have that oomph like we did in game 2. That's why I really would want to see Georgie get significant minutes because definitely in game 1, I felt like he was crying out for someone like him in the game. So I would want to see him, yeah, start or get big minutes. That's one player I would want to see in a game against Minnesota, just maybe to help ease, the nerves and like you talked about in game 2, I think what helped us out and what really rattled Minnesota was the early goal. And I think Georgie can help provide that if he does start. So that's just one piece that's kind of been lingering on my mind when it comes to going into game 3 if I'm thinking about it tactically. Yes, I don't mind if you play like the two strikers. I understand what you meant with, yes, they weren't per se both playing strikers, but playing
I see. I
two
still.
attackers up
I
top.
almost wouldn't even call it two strikers. I'd call it just our 4-2-3-1 with Morris as the outside more.
Okay. But okay,
But
but for you, what do you think of the Georgie take, I guess? Yeah.
I think yes, especially on how the game goes. I think Georgie should play big minutes in this one. I still think I stand with my take. I'd roll out the same lineup, but I've said this multiple times. Playoff preview before the previous games. I think they should have a short leash where if it's the 55th minute and it's still 0-0, Georgie, get warm quick. You're going in. Bring us a spark.
It's kinda like
Because
what they
he is
did with
that guy.
Kalani. It's what they did with Kalani,
Yes.
which I liked.
Yeah. Yes. Agree 100%. And I think that Georgie is kind of that guy where he's like the ideal super sub where he comes off the bench and he immediately lights a fire under the team and brings that spark where I mean, you saw it against Miami. He'll go in, beat a guy 1v1, win a big foul, and he just stands up and, riles the crowd up. Like, he just brings that flair and that energy, which is a guy you need late moments in the playoffs. I think he should probably come off the bench and have big minutes and impact this game. I will say this might change by this time this video comes out. The weather doesn't look too pretty in Minnesota, which could also have an impact on how the Sounders play. So
What do you mean? Snowing?
there it looks pretty cold, and as of when I'm looking at it right now, there is a chance of snow apparently. So hopefully
Wow.
by the time this video changes or this video goes, that changes and this I'll look stupid. But I am reading the weather forecast right now is a high of 36, remaining cloudy with a bit of snow and rain.
Wow.
So we'll see how that impacts the game.
For you, I mean, do you have any other final thoughts, things we should touch upon, for this, or you think we covered all of our bases?
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered that pretty good. It'll be interesting to see. I think the first 5 minutes will really tell a tale of the game. You'll see how Minnesota comes out. And honestly, I think the way the game goes is more dependent on Minnesota than us. Because I think, like I
Yes.
said, I think we're going to play one game no matter what. It'll all be up to if Minnesota is going to fully bunker in or if they're going to leave some gaps in the outside and push up a little more.
It's kinda like the thing so in these 2 games, we saw one version and then another like 2 polar opposites of matches, and it does I think it's dependent on will Sounders forwards and attackers will strikers be strikering, basically? Will they do
Yeah.
what can they actually score? And I think 8 times out of 10, we haven't always seen that from our forwards for the last few years. And either will that feed into Minnesota's game plan or will the Obeds, the Christians pull up another big performance and really drag the team for a win?
Yeah, last thing is it all stems from those two. You'll see in the
Yeah.
first couple minutes if Roldan and if Obed are on their game, it'll be a game changer. I didn't mention it earlier, but one big difference you could see between game 1 and game 2 is when the Sounders are flying, you see at least a couple driving runs from Christian Roldan from the midfield where he picks the ball up and is able to just drive with his power down the field. We saw him do like a 60-yard run across the field and win a corner kick. I think we need to see something like that out of them to win this final game 3, and we'll be able to tell early if they're on, and they will be on because there are rocks.
I think this would be an interesting question to propose and to put out there, especially everyone watching too. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments. If this game does go to penalties again, do Sounders learn from their mistakes? And as well, does Brian Schmetzer do the Netherlands and sub on Andrew Thomas? Will he learn? Will we learn from our mistakes? That's what I'm going to ask you.
I'll answer it first. My opinion, we should. Thomas is proven good at PKs. I don't think Brian will. I think he'll trust Fry, which obviously it's hard. I've said this before. 9 times out of 10, I think it's stupid. That's a waste of a sub. But for us, I think it's worth it. I love Stephen Fry. Hashtag Wrinkle Wednesday. But Thomas is he's proven that he's good at PKs. He's won it multiple times. He's confident and honestly kind of arrogant, but that's what you love and that's what you want to see in a PK shootout. And as for PK takers, I don't even want to think about that because I don't know what really has gone into it. But game 1 did not fill me with any confidence because those PKs were terrible.
I think definitely if the game does go to a PK shootout, which I think can happen, like I don't want to put that out of the realm of possibility. I think
I
Brian
don't even want
should
to put that
learn
into
from
the.
it.
I don't even want to put that into the world. I don't even want to go through that
Oh
again. No,
gosh, you have to.
wood
This
is
is
knocked
this is
on.
this is the
Wood is.
part of the Rave Green TV punditry. Like we have to talk about it all. I think Brian should learn from his mistakes. Bring on Thomas for sure, because I think that's gonna bode and build a lot more confidence to those PK takers in the shootout. No offense to Fry. He was there when I was at the 2016 MLS Cup final. He did what he had to do there, but he is not good in penalty shootouts. I am sorry, not sorry, Steph, but there's nothing wrong with it too. Like, as I said, the Netherlands did it in 2014 World Cup. Chelsea did it in the Super Cup. to success, and then they did it in the Carabao Cup final, and it didn't
Yeah,
work out. But granted, no goalkeeper made a save in that shootout, not a single one. The one miss was skied by Kepa, but it has worked many times in different variety of matches around the world. So we'll just have to see. But boys and girls, our opinion only matters so much. Let us know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below about everything we talked about going into game 3. Again, don't forget, we will be live post game for it. So make sure to be there. Don't miss out. Click notify me on the stream so you know when we go live. Let's get over 20 likes. Subscribe as we're on the road to 2,000 subscribers. But boys and girls, I hope you'll have a lovely day.